Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 321 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today's podcast episode is a repeat of the live stream that we did this past Monday. So this past Monday, Gwen and I talked about the lesser known emotions of grief and just about all of the emotions that can come when you're grieving. Even some of those emotions that were not really expected. So I feel like it was a really rich, vibrant discussion about that. Our next live stream will be the week of Christmas, and it will be on Monday, December 21st. And we've decided to also do that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, since that is such a busy time and evenings are oftentimes very full Christmas week. We also are going to do something cool with sharing Christmas memories about your child. We've decided. I'll go into more specifics on that as we get a little closer, but I think it will be really exciting, and I do want you to think about maybe some of those Christmas memories that you have with your child, or maybe a favorite gift that you got them or they gave you and your response to that. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be pretty cool. We have a sponsor to this week's episode. So this week's sponsor is Melissa and her best friend Lisa. They are sponsoring this episode in honor of Melissa's daughter, Chelsea. Today, release day, November 6th, is the angelversary. So the anniversary of Chelsea's death. So they wanted to honor her today especially. So thank you so much, Melissa, and to Lisa for your contribution. No, if you would like to sponsor an episode, please go to my website, andysmom.com, and click on the donate page. We have one more sponsor coming up next week, and then I haven't had any sponsors for quite a while. So I do appreciate those sponsors. It really does help me so much. You're going to see in the coming week that we're going to be expanding our social media, and that really is just because of sponsors like you. So hopefully those keep coming and I can pay my new social media person easily. Also, if you want to share your story on the podcast, know that I've got 1 or 2 more spots available for interviews this month. So feel free to email me, Marcy, MARCY, at andysmom.com, and we can get people on the schedule to do that. Right now, though, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Gwen and I and our conversation on the emotions of grief.
We are talking today a lot about the unexpected emotions of grief, and just, it's funny because we talked a little bit about this the last one, kind of why I wanted to do this one, because a lot of times these are your ideas, and this one was my idea. This was my idea because I just had a guy on the podcast, and he wrote a book, and he was talking a lot in that book about how some of the emotions that he experienced after losing his wife and 2 daughters in the wildfires, the Smoky Mountain National Park wildfires, that he was surprised by certain emotions and not expecting certain emotions. And so that got me thinking about what are some other emotions that people experience that they might not have experienced or not expected to experience, because I certainly had that little bit of shock. So you thought that'd be a great choice
Mhm.
too. So here we are
Yeah,
talking about it today.
I think so. Interestingly enough, since we said it, I had a message from one of your listeners who I'm in contact with, and just for some resources and different things. And he brought up the very surprised emotion. I did a video about it, just like being gut punched. right? And
Yeah.
what a gut punch is, how it just stops you and it physically hurts and you were not expecting it. I mean, no one just wants to be walking along and just be bam, but that's what happens. And,
Yeah.
we expect sadness and we don't really know the full level of sadness. Thank God we can't know it and don't know it. But
Yeah.
some of the other ones that just totally knock you off your why am I feeling this? And is this okay? And some of them we're afraid to ask somebody else about because we think if I tell someone
Yeah.
that I'm feeling this, they're going to go, you need some help.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I was thinking of our first response in that question of what surprised you.
Mhm.
I just want to dig right in because I think that is one of the ones that is so prevalent, but it's hard to talk about is that resentment.
Yeah.
Is resenting other people, and it goes beyond I mean, she has a definition of what resentment means. It says you feel a complex mix of anger, bitterness, disappointment because they believe you have mistreated them, wronged them, or have not been fair. And she goes on to say, in grief, I felt resentment towards others who have done nothing wrong but lived their life. I guess
Uh-huh.
that is a feeling of it just being unfair. And that is the root of it. But I found myself like being so judgmental of who gets to live and who gets to die or who gets to have a baby and who doesn't or who gets to
Yeah.
I had a very weird filter, and I was
Yeah.
embarrassed to tell people, like
I really, really thought that was an important comment too, and very thoughtful that she actually wrote the definition of resentment. I feel like that's
Mhm.
usually a Gwen thing. You usually
Yeah,
one that
I
talks
do.
about
I do
something
that a
and
lot.
then lists what the definition of it is, but she went all out and wrote that definition of resentment. This is what it is, and this is how I felt. And I still think we get that. I mean, I still will feel that at times, looking at a family and thinking, wow, you don't appreciate even what you have, right? Just feeling a
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
jealousy, a little it's sort of icky to feel that way, I think.
It is. It is because I even, if I hear of an incident where a law enforcement officer and a alleged criminal get into a battle and the officer dies or gets hurt and wounded and the criminal doesn't, I find myself like weighing that out, but still would I want that criminal's mom to have to hurt over the death of their child? I mean,
Mhm,
it's all bad, but I tend to like and you know this from our infertility and things, just like how people could mistreat a child and they've been given one and it just didn't seem fair. And so I understand that feeling of complete resentment and just everybody else seeming happy. That's also what
mhm,
it looks like. Because when we
mhm.
hurt so bad, the perspective or the lens you're looking through is so much pain that when you see other people being happy, it just like almost you just get angry. That
Mhm.
mix, like it said in the definition, the mix of all those feelings.
Right. The last sentence she wrote is, "I guess it's that feeling of just being unfair." And I just talked to
Mhm,
somebody, just had an interview recently, and she said that she used to, when her kids were alive, like, long ago, they used to say, "Mom, it's not fair, it's not fair." And she used to say, "Yeah, life isn't fair, okay? And things aren't fair, and this is just the way it is." And now after losing her child, she really realizes what "it's not fair" really truly means, right? She's thinking
mhm.
like, "This is really not fair," and she feels a little bit like a little kid saying it, but this is really unfair. Losing your child just doesn't feel right.
And it never will be. I've said that from the I mean, one of the very first parents that I ever was in contact with in my career in 87, the fall of 87, a mom, she had an 18-month-old child who died of a cardiac problem, and she said, "There's no way to make this right."
No.
And that has stuck in my head for all 38 years. There is no way that you can say, "Yeah, that was fair, that was right," and I think that's why maybe we do have the resentment or the mixed feelings is because it is there's no way to justify it when we go, "Oh, okay." Um,
Yeah.
because in another death, like the death of my own father, I can look at that. I mean, that was the way people are supposed to die. Like my dad
Yeah.
was 94 at the end of an amazing life, and he
Mhm.
had Parkinson's, and he didn't have quality of life anymore. If I'm gonna say death was fair, that was good death. Like that
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
a good life, but you can't say that about someone who was robbed of life. what we
No.
expect, right? What we
Right.
expect life to be, but yeah.
So I'm just going to remind people again of what the question was. The question is, can you recall responses or emotions in your grief that surprised you? If you are listening to the live stream right now and you want to type in some of the responses to grief or emotions that surprised you, feel free to go ahead. So we're going to comment on those as well. So do you want to go on to the next comment?
Sure. The next one said exhaustion, physical, emotional, and mental. And I do think that surprises a lot of bereaved people how physical grief is
Yes.
and how overwhelmingly the immobilization, like you just can't even lift up your arms, like
Yeah.
brushing your
Just so
teeth.
tired.
Yeah.
Just so incredibly tired. Yeah.
Mhm.
I remember feeling that, and you're right, it is a surprising thing. I mean, it is amazing what mental anguish does to your physical body.
Yes. Alan Wolfelt always says that when you're in grief, you have to go in neutral. And,
Mhm.
we're always used to being in drive and we really want to go in reverse and go back, but it's like living in that neutral.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, a car being in neutral, it doesn't go anywhere. It just
Yeah,
sits. And we have to
yeah.
just sit in our grief. So it is being in neutral physically. Like we just don't have a get up and go. We don't have a drive button.
That was a great analogy.
So I, just even to put it in that perspective, that's what came to my mind. Yeah.
So the second surprising emotion that she put then was guilt. Guilt for continuing to live. So there are different aspects to guilt. So that's one for sure that you feel like you shouldn't go on when your child is not there. So let's elaborate on that one a little bit.
Yeah, or have anything, and it gets easier, I do believe. Let me just, if I could, take an example
Uh-huh.
from your own life.
Mhm.
You already said to the listeners that you're going to the opening game tonight, and you said it with joy and like, oh, you are joyful about going, you love it. But imagine going back, can you think about the first time you went without Andy? It's not the
Oh
same
my
feeling that you
gosh.
have tonight,
No.
right?
Do you know what's crazy about that is that so we got new seats that year. So every 5 years you can get new seats. First of all, Andy was going since he was little. Since he was a little guy. We used to have
Mhm.
4 seats, then Peter was born, we got 5 seats. I mean, it was from little. It was so hard to go to that first game without him, but we bought 5 tickets. Andy helped me pick out the tickets. So there's the seat reassignment. You log on this exact time. You have 15 minutes to pick out which seats you want. Andy was super into it. It was Andy and me on the computer picking out exactly what our seats should be. Well, we picked them out, and then so the basketball season obviously starts in November, and this was done in the summertime, and he died on August 15th. So we actually didn't have to pay for the tickets until after he had died, because
Mm.
that's later, and we don't get them until, like, October. So we could have and Eric talked about, like, "W we don't need 5 tickets anymore."
Mhm.
I could not just buy 4 tickets. I could not. That first year, we bought Andy a ticket,
Uh-huh.
and we had 5 seats, and sometimes Peter brought a friend, sometimes the seat was empty. It just sort of depended, but I couldn't have somebody else in the seat.
Mhm.
The second year, we just went down to 4, and somebody else was in that seat occasionally. So it's very hard, obviously, to buy a single ticket. So this
Mhm.
ticket was in the middle of all of the seats, and it wasn't often that somebody would do that. It would be like a big game, like the Michigan State game, someone who was in that seat. There are other times somebody was in that seat, and it it hurt. It hurt every time. Now it's interesting because I always think, what would Andy be doing, right? So Andy should
Mhm.
be a senior in college this year. Michigan State has this the I-Zone, they call it, the student section. It's very, exciting. It's very fun for kids to be in, and I feel like he would be there. I feel like he would have gone to Michigan State, and he would have been sitting in that I-Zone. So, I still think about Andy. Really, when we go to these games, I think about him all the time, right? All of the time. And it's funny because that's like an unexpected thing, right? This would be
Right.
something that you might not think, that I'm going to go to a basketball game and be thinking about Andy. But of course I am, because he loved it. I
Right.
mean, that was such a thrill for him every time.
Right. So it is a progression of that guilt, like we're still going, he's not here,
Yep.
he should be here, we can't give up his seat, which is the guilt that I believe she was talking about, like how you can,
Yeah.
she said, continue to live. But now you don't feel guilty about going to the game tonight, but you have not forgotten.
Yeah.
It's still not right, but
Yeah.
guilt
Still feels wrong.
isn't the prevailing emotion you have for going tonight. Would you
Mhm.
agree? Yeah.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
100% agree.
And it's kind of the same thing with those approaching their first holidays coming up, that guilt of how do we still have the joy, and through the years I've known you, it's been a progression, right? It changed so much last year for finally putting out the village and different things that you had done,
Yeah.
so I
Right.
just want listeners to hear that these surprising feelings are catch us unaware, but it
Uh-huh.
does change. I mean, it changes over time and there's a progression. And so that guilt is really a big one at the beginning, especially.
All right. Yeah. So now somebody just wrote in. So thank you, Melinda, for just writing in. Melinda wrote, my son loved his nieces and nephews so much. I find myself feeling guilty for enjoying their games and things. And he's fixing to be gone 7 years. So
Mhm.
7 years
Yeah.
later, still feeling some guilt over that kind of stuff. Makes
Yep.
a lot of sense.
For
Makes a lot of
sure.
sense to me. Mm-hmm.
The next feeling that was written about was jealousy, that others
Yeah.
still had their living children. And we kind of talked about that with resentment, but jealousy and that envy is the emotions not really talked about. And I
Yeah.
laugh because, there's one verse about murder, one verse about adultery, and one verse about, I can't remember what in the commandments, but there's a couple about coveting.
Yeah.
And that coveting what other people have. And I've said this so many times, many people don't struggle with jealousy. You can look and go, oh yeah, they have, a really nice car, or they have an in-ground swimming pool, and that'd be nice, whatever it is. But that true envy and jealousy that someone has something that you want that you can't have. It's different than just looking, go, "Oh, that'd be nice to have that." No, you long for it. It's more than, "Oh, just a passing, that'd be nice." It stews in there for a while.
Mhm, mhm. Well, and that was the first emotion that we talked about, even at the end of the last live stream. If you remember,
Mhm.
when we were talking about
Right.
the unexpected emotions of grief, and that was the emotion actually that he first talked about. He went through all these unexpected emotions, and the very first one he talked
Mhm.
about was envy. And
Mhm.
and that's what hit me, like, yeah, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about
Mhm.
envy and what that feels like, and some of the other things that may pop up that you were really just not expecting.
Uh-huh.
So I'm so glad we kind of were able to dive into that, and that several people talked about that.
Yes. Oh, because it's just not talked about very often, but it is a
No.
big part of it. Yeah.
So, all right. So, next one that I want to read here is from Bonnie. Bonnie said, the first New Year's Eve really caught me by surprise. I thought I would be so happy to have that horrible year behind me. I was ready to celebrate it being over, but then it hit me that I would begin a new year without her in it. The first hours of the last few hours of the last year she lived on this earth were devastating to me. So love that she brought that up.
Mhm.
She also then went on to say, to be honest, almost everything about grief in losing a child surprised me. So many different emotions I never felt after losing so many people I loved. It's very confusing to me because it was just so very different and hard to explain or understand. But I did want to mention
Mhm.
that New Year's Eve surprise. I was shocked by that. I expected Christmas to be horrible, and Christmas was bad, although maybe in some ways not as bad as I expected. But New Year's, holy cow, I just wasn't expecting it to be bad. And I think that's why it was so bad.
Yeah, because 'cause we're not expecting it, and then it happens. A couple things, I mean, we did have someone say that they stayed up just to make sure that that bad year left, like, I just wanted they had never stayed up throughout New Year's. I think it was one of our listeners in the years past just said I needed to know that it was gone, but I haven't heard that as much as I've heard
Yeah.
the starting something new and that new thing coming that they're not a part of. They were not alive in this year. And that's why I think the days leading up to the 1 year is hard because you can no longer say a year ago
Yeah.
today
Yeah. I know.
they were
I know.
alive. And so, yeah,
Exactly.
those are really, really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was really hard. I remember because, I've told people this before. That first Christmas, we went to see my aunt, my dear Aunt Penny, in Las Vegas. We flew out on Christmas Eve, so the normal time we'd be doing presents. We're on an airplane. We get there like late in the night, went to bed, got up. I was with my cousins and family there, but it was totally different than normal. We'd never done Christmas out there. Of course, it's in Las Vegas, it's in the desert, there's no snow, there's a lot of that. It just felt better to do that. And then my cousin, he lived in Southern California at the time, and he and his family were going to go to Mexico. And so they said, you know what? Go stay in our house for New Year's. Stay there a couple days, make our house your house, and you can spend some time at the beach or whatever. So we did that. And that's the night I remember like it was yesterday, actually. I remember being in bed and having it be midnight and Eric and I crying. We were just crying because this next year was going to be starting. And here we were trying to get away. We were trying to do something totally different. I mean, we did. We went to the beach. They had like fun little activities for us planned. But gosh, I mean, there we were crying as midnight came.
Mhm.
And it started, what's bad too is
Right.
it started at like 9. It started because it was midnight in Michigan,
Yes.
right? It was midnight in
Yes.
Michigan at 9,
Right.
but then it wasn't there. So it was like 3, 4 hours of me just being just an absolute mess, crying about this new year starting and without a minute. I mean, it was just so horrible.
It is. And, people ask me a lot about, wanting to move or change something and change the traditions, which oftentimes we have to do to make them tolerable. But I often say it's just geography.
Yeah.
Like your broken heart was with you, no
Mhm.
matter what state you were in or whose home you were sleeping in that night or what beautiful surroundings you have. It's just geography. Your heart is what demands the attention and carries the feelings and the memories and the thoughts and
So we've had a couple more people write in. Amber just wrote in, I have a hard time thinking I'm starting another year without my babies. So true. Thank you, Amber, for that comment. And Amber's coming on from the YouTube channel, which I'm so excited. Somebody's joining us from the YouTube channel, so that's good. And then Nancy wrote in again about that surprising shock. She said, the other day I was walking in the mall and saw a store that my son used to frequent, and it totally threw me off. It was something out of the blue that hit me like a rock. Mentally, you can prepare for the
Uh-huh.
holidays, etc., but this came out of the blue. So true, Nancy. I'm glad you brought up that point too. It's those we've talked about this before, the unexpected potholes,
Uh-huh.
right? You see, I remember hearing this. I don't know if it was from you or from somebody else about potholes and speed bumps.
Uh-huh.
That speed bumps you see coming. You know they're coming. There are signs warning you of speed bumps ahead. And so I think of the holidays, birthdays, anniversaries. Those are all speed bumps. I know they're coming. I slow down. Sometimes they're worse than expected, sometimes better than expected, but I know they're coming. The potholes, they just catch you off guard. You don't know they're coming. You can't prep for them. They're just completely out of the blue.
Uh-huh.
I love that she brought that up. I think that's a good point too.
Absolutely, and that's that gut punch where you're just stopped in your tracks, like, she used the description, "Hit me like a rock," like, it takes some recovery. I
Mhm.
mean, you get bruised. If somebody gut punched you, you would have to stop and recover and go, "Oh, look how bad this hurt. Look at this bruise," or "Look at," and nobody
Yeah.
sees it.
Yeah.
Like, but it needs some recovery too because it stops you,
Mhm.
it slows you down, it knocks you off kilter, and that's why, again, it's so exhausting.
Mhm. Mhm. I want to say the next comment here was actually a positive comment. So thank you, Artie, for this one.
Mhm.
One thing that surprised me in my grief was my ability to extend grace to those who didn't offer the support I thought they would. I think that's a great point too. I
Mhm.
was not expecting someone to bring up kind of a positive unexpected emotion, but I'm glad Archie did that because there are things that you surprise yourself that you're able to do.
Mhm. Well, and I've had people say, they've been surprised at their ability to talk at their child's
Yeah.
funeral or to create the funeral and go through it and make it what they wanted. They find a strength they didn't know they had, and that surprised them.
Mhm.
Like, they didn't think they'd be able to do it, and they do those things. So, yeah, we get surprised by grace and strength and
Mhm.
even
Yeah.
sometimes laughter or, different things. Yeah.
That's the thing. You can do more than you think you can sometimes.
Mhm.
I can't do this. I can't do this. I remember, I mean, I've said this on the podcast, I know many times. My friend Michelle, all the time, because I would say to her, I can't do this.
Mhm.
And her response to me was, Marcy, you are doing this, which is true.
Uh-huh.
Like I was doing stuff that I just did not think I ever possibly could do. But yet somehow, by the grace of God or whatever, I was able to do things that I never imagined possible. So I think that's another thing.
Right. I have some other emotions that weren't written in about that I was
Oh, and
going to
I've
tell you
got one that I want to talk
guys.
about.
Okay, well, you start with yours because it could be one of
Okay.
mine on my
So the biggest shocking emotion that I had was fear. I did not expect to feel terrified, but I did. The safety of my world was just destroyed. And it's funny, I think it might surprise people to hear me say that because, I had a mom who died of cancer when I was young. It's not like I didn't know death. I did. And I knew the world wasn't a safe place. But I had fallen into this routine. And I guess I sort of thought, that my bad thing had happened and that things were going to be okay now. And when
Mhm.
Andy died, I just knew, like, this can happen once, this can happen again.
Yeah.
I just was so terrified of many things, of losing another child, of having to live without Andy. I just felt like I was just a constant feeling of fear in my body that I didn't know, I just didn't think it would be there. I knew I would be sad. I knew I would miss him. And maybe even the guilt wasn't unexpected. Anger, I think, wasn't unexpected because obviously, we were in a car accident. That was someone's fault. That someone killed him. I can be angry at God for letting this happen. It can be all of that. I think I expected to an extent, maybe not the degree that things were, but the fear, I did not expect that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's, another exhausting place to live life, but it's a natural response when what you assumed about the world that you were good and that's the assumption that most of us feel safe in making is that we are going to outlive our children, right?
Mhm.
But now
Yeah.
that's no longer anything that you couldn't take the stock in, and yeah.
I mean, I live in a world where I think I may outlive all my children. Now, is that logical thinking? No, but is it the thoughts that go through my mind? Of course it is. I've had to plan one funeral.
Mhm,
Could I plan several more? I certainly hope not, but yet
mhm.
I know it's not impossible.
And I mean, for me, it's a occupational hazard to live with the awareness of death every single moment. So there are times, we were driving to pick up my new car, and my husband was saying, "Now, here's what I was thinking our plan would be. And, I just want you to know where this money came from and do this and do that." And I said, "Why are you telling me this?" He said, "Well, in case I'm not here in a few years when you have to get another new car." And I'm like, "Stop saying that." Like, why now I have this thing, like, is he preparing me? Does he know something? Is that weird way of, because I hear people who say, "My person said this, and did they know they were gonna die?" So then I just get a lot of fear sometimes that I
Yeah.
literally have to go, "No, he was just telling me."
Yeah.
So,
That's a
a
normal thing to
normal
say.
conversation, you just are buying a big purchase. I wanted you to know, like, this was what I was thinking, that's a normal thing for couples to do, and I was overridden with fear
Right.
because of the reality that many people do have to, make a decision without their person. Like,
Mhm.
that's what happens, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I fear is one that we do have to take steps to overcome, and maybe that's something we can talk about another time. Because it can get the best of us. It really can.
Yeah. 'Cause it's hard to live like that. It's really hard to live like that.
Mhm.
It's a constant thing that I have to work on.
Uh-huh. Me too.
Right? Certainly at the beginning, way more even than now, but still now, I still have to work on it.
Mhm. Amber said, "I have to check myself. I fear being away from my children. I want them to progress, but I am a little bit relieved when my children don't wanna go places or just wanna stay home with me."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can understand that. I can totally understand that you have that little bit of relief, like, you want them to go, but, and then she went on to say, "I worry my fear keeps my adult children from progressing in life." I mean,
Mhm.
that's the thing too. The worry. I
Yep.
mean, it's fear and worry go hand in
It
hand.
is.
Mhm.
It is, and it's just yeah, I feel it. It's love, it's they're living in a reality that things happen even that are so out of our control, and we just fear that that will happen again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could go down a different tangent, but I won't. But yeah, I just it takes us so many places, but I understand that. And I like where she started it off, said I have to check myself. And I think that's where you and I both talk about we just have to use some critical thinking and check ourselves and say, wait a minute, I gotta trust, I gotta let them live life.
Yeah.
This is a normal conversation. Why do you think it means your husband's gonna die soon?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
why
Right.
am I doing this? Yeah.
Okay, so you had a few other ones that you wanted to talk about though, so go ahead.
Yeah, one was feeling fragile,
Yeah.
feeling I don't wanna say weak because I don't look at grief as weakness, but it is such a fragile time that you like, how people might look at you. If I go there, what are people gonna say? And then the other feeling of that is like a feeling a misfit or misplaced in the world, or if you camped with people, or you always went to basketball games, or you always went to an event, and now without your child, it's like, do we fit there? And you just feel out of place,
Wow.
like a misfit.
And honestly, it's not even like those type of things. It's in general. You go to an event with a whole bunch of women, and there are times when I feel like I don't fit with you. I can't
Mhm.
talk about the same things you want to talk about. I just am not. I like you're just so changed that it just doesn't
Yeah,
work. I think it's not even it doesn't even have to specifically have to do with your child.
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And just where you fit in the world because the things that other people worry about or talk about or stress about, you've already lived through the worst. So you're like, oh, I can't even listen to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. This last week of work was I had a challenging week. I see a lot of kids that have struggles with anxiety and struggles with different things. And I saw a kid, and he's a younger kid, and I felt for him. I did, but he's like, "Well, life is just horrible. If it could get worse, just I don't know how it could. There's just no way it could get worse." And it was because a kid was picking on him in class, and I obviously I sympathized with him and I said the right things, but I'm thinking to myself, dude, you have no idea. Because he didn't really. Really? You think it couldn't be worse? Because I can tell you a lot of things that could be worse. Because it's not like he was dealing with the death of someone in his family or anything like that. It was literally that a kid had picked on him that day in school, and I don't even think the kid really knew he was picking on him, to be honest. I just think he was being
Food.
sensitive. Just hard to feel that
Yeah.
sometimes, and, oh gosh, it's a struggle.
Yes, it is, and you're in a professional role, you have to be professional, and sometimes as grievers, when we're not in a professional role, we have to wonder what's gonna come out of our mouth. Now
Yeah.
for me, again, everywhere I go, people know I'm a grief counselor, but I went to a funeral, where no one knew who I was. It was very, strange that it happened, but I was visiting my parents, and, like, a great aunt, somebody died, and my dad said, "Well, some of your cousins may be there, do you wanna go?" And long story short, I'm sitting next to a man who I do not know who was in a walker, and there was a lot of sitting, standing, kneeling at this particular funeral service, and he was every time we were asked to stand, sit, or kneel, or change positions, I should say, he crabbed, like, out loud, like, "Oh, I just got comfortable now, doesn't he know my knees are 90 years old, blah, blah, blah," and he was, like, complaining the whole time, and then when they said that the luncheon was somewhere else that we had to drive to, and he just started, like, complaining about having to drive to this luncheon, and you know what I said to him? I said, "Excuse me, sir, you seem very unhappy today with the movement and the placement of the luncheon. Would you like to trade places with," what's her name, Francine?
No, you did not. You said that.
I did. I'm like, "It beats the alternative, buddy. Like, this is your other option, dead or alive." Like, and I could not believe. And
I can't
he
believe you said that. I really can't. That is so not the grief counselor, Gwen. You would never do that had you known that.
Yes. And when I'm in places that people don't know me, I think the real me comes out a little bit, or just like, and I just said it. I just said, "Do you wanna take pictures with her?" Then at the luncheon, I did sit with him, and I learned how he knew this person and, what their relationship was like and about his life, and it was amazing. But when we were walking away, my son was with me, and when we were walking away, he said to my son, "You've got a really special mom there," or something like that, and I'm like, "Okay." So I didn't totally offend him, but, just putting in perspective, like,
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta, and that's why it's hard listening to people complain when that heartache, I mean, and I know everyone's heartache is real of what they're going through, but to me, it just, he was just trying to complain, and I couldn't have it at
Yeah.
a funeral.
Oh, here we've got another comment. I like this one. I want to go into this a little bit. I listen to people say how they are more empathic.
Uh-huh.
I feel more hardened in a lot of ways. I hope someday I won't have to pretend to be empathic. Ooh, that's a good one. I
Mm.
want to delve into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in general, I feel like I am more empathic. I do. I don't think I was right away. I
Mhm.
don't think it was, but I think now I am, because now I just understand pain and anguish a little bit more. And in general, I think I am more understanding of where people are. And even if I don't feel like I would think that is painful and anguish, like this kid, right? I like being picked on by. I obviously don't think that's the worst thing that could happen to him. I know it's not the worst thing that could happen to him, even though he specifically kind of said to me, "I don't know that life could be any worse. I can't imagine how it could be worse," almost like challenging me to tell him ways that it could be worse, which I did not do.
Mhm.
But I actually do feel more for him than I probably would have before. Because I understand that, gosh, he's really hurting, and let's come up
Yes.
with ways to try to keep him from hurting. But I do think she's right here in that some people feel more empathy towards others, and some are like, yeah, whatever. I can't. And honestly, even with me, I
Mhm.
think it depends on the situation with
Mhm.
how you're feeling. So let's dive into that. I want to hear your perspective on that.
Mhm.
Like feeling empathic or feeling more hardened.
I think it's both. I think it's those carrying both, having space for both emotions, right? The moving on, but hanging on to the old, we talked about the realities of grief being so opposed to each other, but I do think that we can look and go, I don't ever want anyone to feel pain,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
hardened that other people don't feel it or they don't understand
Uh-huh.
our own pain. I get it. It's
Yeah.
both, I think.
Yeah.
I really do.
I almost feel like this could be a whole episode in and of itself.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think just to be accepting of the fact that it can be both.
Yeah.
I actually suspect for her, it is a little bit of both. I know she says she feels more hardened, but I know her personally, and I know she's got a soft heart
Uh-huh.
for people going through pain for sure too. So I think she's being a little hard on herself that she's
Uh-huh.
always more hardened, because I don't think that's true. But yeah, I like that. I
Yeah,
think that
and
was
and
good.
having to pretend, that's
Yeah.
one of the other surprise emotions about grief is that we do have to put on a mask or a face more than we thought that we would.
Yeah.
And being present to someone when, or to a situation where we're hurting, sometimes we do have to put on the mask
Mhm.
that we care.
Mhm.
We really don't.
Yeah, you're right. Timing is weird in many ways, but, I went back to work really to my full kind of time position in
Mhm.
January of 2020. So Andy died in 2018. I went back to work for a while, then I left shortly after Halloween of 2018. And then I came back around the next November, just doing some walk-in clinic, just kind of little bits. But then come January, that's when I really started back in my kind of normal hours
Mhm.
in January. And then, of course, if y'all remember, in March 2020. It's when the pandemic hit. So it's when everybody had to start wearing a mask all the time. I mean, for me, I can so think back to that being like I had put on an emotional mask and I had to put on a physical mask. It was it was I mean, it's sort of a beautiful analogy that that's when that all happened, for me to have to do all that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I hated having to wear that physical mask, but yeah, in some ways it hid the tears and was sort of nice.
Right.
Mhm.
We've said this so much, but that's why being with like-minded people or people going through the same thing that we are is that we don't have to wear the mask and we can have
Yeah.
these conversations that we're having and say, "Yes, I felt that way too," because it normalizes us. And we do know, and you've said this so much that the rest of the world doesn't know. We don't want them to know, but they really don't know.
Uh-huh.
So that's the reality is that we're also living in a world or in friendships or in jobs with people who, coworkers who just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't understand. What about were you ever embarrassed with what you were feeling, Marcy? I'm like, did you remember feeling embarrassed?
Well, you know what? I think that kind of leads into our next question. So let's go on to the next question that we posted, which is,
Okay.
are there some feelings that you keep hidden in your grief? And you don't have to share what they are, but maybe why you kept them hidden. So that I think goes into that is like feeling ashamed and not wanting to others to know and not wanting others to see that.
Mhm.
Maybe let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So Andrea wrote, and I have feelings that I keep to myself because they're so personal. Sharing them would feel like I'm sharing something that it's impossible for others to fully grasp. I
Gosh.
like that. It's a
Uh-huh.
really, really nice comment
Uh-huh.
and definitely so true. So that's a good reason that it's just too personal. And I think I've talked about
Uh-huh.
that in the past too, about how I feel like in my grief, when you meet somebody new, when something comes in, do I tell them? Do I not tell them? And I've definitely gotten to the point of, do they deserve it? Do they have that right to know? And if I feel like, yeah, I'm going to continue to have a relationship with this person, I kind of want them to know, then then I tell it. But if it's someone that I'm meeting in passing that I don't feel like has like earned that, then I'm gonna keep it in. That's a personal thing that I don't have to share with everybody. So I think that goes into that a
Mhm.
little bit. Mhm. What are your thought? What are your
Well, and I think when things are so yeah, when it's so close to our heart, the example that I could use is like if you and your spouse aren't getting along and you risk telling somebody, then the person could say, "Yeah, well, they're such a jerk. I can't believe they acted that way." And but you love them and you want to defend them then like, "Well, I shouldn't have told you because, you don't understand the whole thing and you don't love them like I do." So now that person thinks your person is a jerk and you learn not to tell people those really
Yeah.
close things. We learn that in relationships. I do think we have to learn that in grief too.
Yeah.
That other people just aren't going we make ourselves vulnerable to their unsolicited advice, cattiness, lack of understanding, their flippant answers, whatever it is, and that's what makes it personal because it's so precious that I can't tell you and take the risk that you're gonna stomp on this
Yes.
thing, and you're not gonna get it anyway, so you just keep it so close to the chest.
Right. That is it. I think it is just a fear of being hurt more by a
Mhm,
comment that you don't want, and then it's just
mhm,
easier to just hide it. It's just so much easier to hide it.
mhm. Or just to keep it I think sometimes hiding makes it seem like it's an unhealthy thing.
No.
I don't think
Oh,
everything is meant to be shared. I think there are things that you're healthy in the keeping it close to your chest,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
keeping those things not out there for everybody to know.
Well, and I used to feel guilty, like I needed to tell everyone that I met about Andy because,
Uh-huh,
like, I don't wanna act
uh-huh,
like he didn't exist. If somebody asks me how many kids I have, I'm gonna 100% mention it every single time that I had Andy and Andy has died. I mean, now I will say how many kids I have, and then I will go on and say another comment, but I won't say like volunteer that he's gone, right? Because
mm,
it just ends up making people feel uncomfortable, or like we said earlier, it makes there's unsolicited comments that you don't want to hear.
Mhm.
I just don't want that. So I don't lie, but I just don't say everything.
That goes back to the other comment says jealousy due to judgment. Like we keep the jealousy a secret because we don't want people to judge. Like, what? You can't be happy for me?
I know.
And it's like, what? You can't be sad for me?
I know. I loved that comment again. So we already talked about jealousy, but you're
Mhm.
right. She's 100% right. That's one that you don't want to admit. You don't want to admit this to other
Mhm.
people because then they think you're kind
Mhm.
of a jerk too. And like, I mean, some people maybe
Mhm.
understand, but others are really, really, you're jealous over me for this?
Yeah. Or can't you be happy for me? And it's like,
Yeah. Why can't you be happy for me?
so if someone wants to be married and they're single and they go to everybody's bridal showers and weddings and someone who wants a baby and they have to go to baby showers and this and that, and everyone just says, but I know you want it, but can't you just be happy for us? When someone longs for something,
Yeah.
it's like, I can't keep putting my heart in this spot because it hurts so bad that you are to celebrate someone else again having something that I don't have. So, and when your child dies,
Well, I'm going to go back to what I'm going to go back to is high school graduation parties.
yeah.
I have not been to that many high school graduation parties since Andy died. They are just so painful. And that is, I
Mhm.
think, a perfect example of like, can't you
Huh.
just be happy for me? Whatever. We went to one right away. The first year after Andy died, I started crying. I had to leave. I went and sat in the car while Eric did all the normal stuff and talked to people. And I said to him, like, you don't need to leave. I'm leaving. Like, you do not need to leave. And he did stay.
Uh-huh.
Some of our best friends, my friend Kara and her husband, their son, they had a son right between Andy and Peter, and he graduated, and we didn't go to his graduation party. I did have one for Peter, we had one with his best friend because he really wanted one. My daughter didn't. It worked out fine because it was a pandemic and, like, nobody did anyway, and so it wasn't, like, a big deal because I think very few people really had them that year because of COVID, but, Peter wanted one, and so we did have one with a friend and went through it. I went to my niece's this year, but when my nephew had his, the year after Andy should have had his, I didn't go. When our best friends had it, I didn't go. Now, their daughter is graduating this year in the spring, and I expect we will go. So, it just really depends on where you are and where your heart is, whether you can do some things like that. But that jealousy
Obvious.
and not really wanting to admit why I can't go,
Uh-huh.
but I can't go.
Yep.
Usually we just say, "Oh, we're out of town, we can't make it," whatever. But really it's that kind of envy.
Yeah, very much so. Melissa has a comment. She said, last year I attended several of Chelsea's friends' weddings, and now this year I'm attending baby showers. It hurts me, but I am also excited because I know Chelsea would be excited and I'm happy for the friends. Yeah, and that's that. We can still be happy for them and be sad for ourselves, but early on, it's really hard to do. And if you find yourself not being able to go,
Yeah.
just to know that that's not something.
And great for Melissa that you can, but also totally okay if you can't. Totally.
Yeah. When you watch other people having those things in life that your child should have had, it's just another gut punch. It's a
Mhm.
big reminder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mine is baby showers. It's been 14 years since my first lost, and I dread those. I can send a gift, but going is so heartbreaking. Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, so much so.
You know what? I gotta tell you something, Gwen. When we started, there was no response, no answer to our live stream question number 3, and guess what? In the last hour, we've gotten an answer to live stream question number 3. So, we're gonna do that.
Oh,
This
good.
one is, was a little bit different, worded a little bit differently. So, have you ever wondered why blank is never talked about in grief? So, just another kind of unexpected things. So, this is what Andrea wrote in. Have you ever wondered why the profound sense of isolation is never talked about in grief?
Mhm. Mhm,
Great
mhm.
comment, Andrea.
It is, and when I teach on grief, I talk about this because what it is it's a twofold isolation. It is other people isolate us because they don't understand. We may not even get invited. I mean, I've talked about couples and people who get uninvited to things because their world has changed, whatever that is. So that's a true isolation. They've been removed from the euchre club because they don't have a partner, whatever it is. But then the isolation that happens because everywhere we go, we feel like we don't fit in, or there's pain, or it's hard, or it's exhausting, then we begin to withdraw and isolate ourselves,
Mhm.
right? For protection, for recovery, for whatever it is. And it is very isolating.
Yeah.
And that's the work of grief, is to figure out how to do the work and still be connected in life, because if we completely isolate, it makes healing very, very hard.
Mhm. And then I think you need to find the people that you can be around so that you're not feeling isolated in at least certain situations, right? Certain
Yes.
certain
Yeah.
situations you are still going to feel isolated. But
Mhm,
hopefully you can find a place
mhm.
where you do not feel so alone and so lost,
Right.
right? And whether it's support groups and things like that that we're doing, which by the way, those support groups are starting back up again next week. So if you want to be in a Starlight support group, virtual support group with me, one of the ones in the evening, email chris@starlightmin.org and get yourself involved, because that can be at least that 1 hour and 15 minutes a week where you come on with a group. You're not gonna feel isolated. You're gonna feel like
Right.
you're a part
Well,
of the group and you fit in. So that was a
yeah,
little
that's what I was gonna
plug,
say.
little last second
Yeah.
plug. Hopefully Chris is not mad at me for giving, this
Last
out
minute.
just a few days before the next session
Um,
starts, but I love it.
but that's what I was gonna say. We just spent 58 minutes talking about things that people don't talk about all the time, and I hope somebody felt less isolated.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
that you feel like, "Oh gosh, they just said something that I was, afraid, embarrassed, challenged about not
Mhm.
sharing,"
Mhm.
and but it is,
Yeah, and I was just going to say,
it's
I mean, I get that a lot from, I've said so many times on the podcast, like, this is not a podcast that you can binge. Okay. I'm so wrong. This is a podcast people
Mhm.
binge. And people binge,
That
I
is, yeah.
think, because they feel isolated. And when they listen to the
Mhm.
podcast, they don't. They feel like I'm not
Right.
alone. I am a part of this group,
Yep.
and we
Mhm.
can I can listen to this about other kids, about other moms and dads, and I could feel a little less alone,
Mhm.
and a little less
Mhm.
isolated. So, I am
Mhm.
so glad Andrea wrote that
Wha
comment in the last half an hour, because it is
I
a
am
beautiful
too.
way to kind of wrap this up, I
But
think.
it is, but now the counselor in me wants to say one other piece of that. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this is the case with the writer who wrote the question, but it just brings something to my mind that I always feel like I wanna give those who feel isolated because of a secret, uh, unknown battle that the person, either like
Yeah.
something really that
Yeah.
they just can't share in a group or with others or whatever, that it can be very isolating. And that's where you don't have to be part of a group and air it in front of people,
Yeah.
but just have at least one person that you can talk to about that. So
Okay.
I just want to say that, because some people still will be going, wait a minute, though, if I told you,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah,
Okay. Okay.
blah.
True. Good point. Excellent point,
Yeah.
Gwen. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we are wrapping up, and anything else you wanted to say, Gwen?
No, I have 4 other emotions that I had written down that we didn't get to, but I just put a big flag or a circle around them, and we'll just save them maybe for another conversation because we can't get into them. We had a lot of good
No, a lot
other
of good
things
discussion.
discussed,
Okay,
so
so our
yeah.
next live stream will be the week of Christmas. I would like to do. So hopefully that's going to work out with Gwen.
Mhm.
You're just learning about this now. We are going to
I was
see
gonna say,
what we want to do. If we want to stick with this afternoon, if we want to go to evening. I almost think we will stick with afternoon. I feel like our engagement was not a lot different.
mhm,
Especially at Christmas time, I feel like evenings are so, so incredibly busy, so I think afternoon would probably be better. We are doing it that week before Christmas, hopefully. We'll let you know the time when we get a little bit closer, but it's because Christmas Day is a release day, and I never want to do like a regular episode on something like Christmas.
Right.
If people have thoughts on what they want that topic to be for Christmas week, please email marcy@andysmom.com. Write a comment in the live stream here if you're watching later on as to what things you might want us to kind of talk about. We've talked about different things at Christmas time. Give us some other ideas and thoughts on what you might want to hear about and on Christmas Day or those days before. So, anything else, Gwen? Otherwise, I think we should
Nope.
sign out.
I'm writing ideas for it, and we can talk about it. So
Perfect.
it's always, I hope, a very unifying and non-isolating conversation. I believe that's what it is, and I hope that's what came across, that all feelings are information. They belong. Some are overwhelming and scary, but
All right. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for listening. Bye-bye.
okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation. Or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.